If you thought you knew it all about the newest group of Jets players who are coming in, be it the draft, be it undrafted free agency, if you thought you knew all you had to by now, we're here to tell you you're wrong. I'm Glenn Naughton with JetNation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. So we took a little cruise around the multiple sites using PFN and PFF and college websites, player bios and histories, and thought we try to look up any interesting facts, news stories about some of the guys who have come in, and we've heard so much about. You get the number on the stats, and I'll tell you what, I'm guilty. I realized this recently. I don't look at stats enough anymore. I spend so much time just watching the film and kind of drawing my conclusions about what I think about a player that I rarely look at the numbers, and they're not the be all end all, but they are important. They do matter. So like I said, by my own admission, that's something where I've recently fallen behind on looking at that type of stuff. So that's not going to be the case tonight. We're gonna look at not just stats, but just some facts, some interesting tidbits, some good, some bad. It's not all sunshine and rainbows with this review. It doesn't include every single player. Almost all of them, almost every draft pick and UDFA. Just some information, some little known info. Give me a follow on Twitter at JNRadio_Glenn. As I said at the top, be sure to check out JetNation, the forums at JetNation.com. Did I say it? Did I forget it? I say it so many times I forget sometimes that I forgot. If that makes any sense, like a yogiism. I forget that I forgot. But yeah, JetNation.com, most active Jets message board on the web. Check it out. See what they've got going on. And we're going to take a look. Let's see here. So I pulled up a list. Some of the stuff you might know. One or two are fairly obvious. Fairly, I would expect most people to know, but still just impressive enough that I'd bring it up. Let's see in the chat. Chris says, please subscribe, comment to Jet Nation YouTube. Please do. That would be greatly appreciated. Phenomenal representation of a great New York Jets content. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. He says Glenn's incredible. I'm assuming not to be too big-headed here, but nowadays when I see Glenn, I just assume we're talking about Aaron Glenn because he's the guy. And when he was hired, there was a lot of confusion because people in the chat would be like, "I don't think Glenn's the right man for the job," and I'm like, "What, man? I'm just sitting here talking about football, not rewriting, not reinventing the wheel." Like, oh, Aaron Glenn. So thanks a lot, Chris BC or CB Jets fan. Really appreciate that. So just some numbers, some stats, some facts. Like I said, Arman Membu, no shocker here. Probably the most obvious. You may have even heard this one. And actually, maybe you didn't, because really the number I kept hearing with Membu was his senior year. Gave up one sack on however many reps, and he disputed that and said, actually, that wasn't on me. And I believe it was Rich Cimini. Somebody said they went back and watched it, and they kind of agreed with Membu that he wasn't at fault for that sack. But I went to see career-wise. If he gave up 0 sacks this previous season, how do you do in the years before that? How has his development come along? Pretty incredible. Even though, and this one I got from PFF, they had him as giving up 0 sacks last year. So they agree. Whoever had him as giving up 1, both Membu, Cimini, and PFF disagree. PFF says that in 1,036 pass block reps, with 322 of those being true pass sets. And what that means, it's not a quick hitter. Like you actually have to set yourself and protect the passer. With so many offenses nowadays, the ball's out so quick, the lineman doesn't even make contact with a defender. Like, you're gonna call that a pass block rep? The DN comes out of his stance, puts a move on you, and the ball's out. Like, okay, is that a yeah, not really. So they're saying 1,036 pass block reps total, 322 true pass sets for Membu in his career, allowed 2 sacks. I mean, come on. 2 sacks on over 1,000 reps, 322 true. That's not to say the other 700-ish were all quick hitters and screens. I'm sure there was more to it than that. But just a very impressive number for Arman Membu, and not one I've heard so far, so I thought I'd throw it out there. Tight end Mason Taylor the second-round pick out of Notre Dame, ended his Notre Dame career by catching a pass in 28 consecutive games. That's pretty damn good. Leaves LSU as their all-time leader in receptions and yards for a tight end with 129 and 1308 respectively of his 135 catches. And this is big, right? This is more than half of his catches went for first downs. Move those chains, right? Keep the ball going. He had 701 yards after the catch, 304 after contact. Here's something I did not know. And I'm going to guess, listen, I'm sure there are people out there who will say they already knew every single thing I'm going to share tonight. Liars. First thing that I went, oh, I had no idea. There's another Taylor and another college football playing Taylor. His brother Isaiah transferred from Arizona. He is currently a Miami Hurricane. Don't know how highly touted he is. Haven't watched him. Numbers, not fantastic. It looked like he didn't even really play last year. Had 40 tackles a couple years ago with Arizona, which was his career high. So I don't know if he's a guy that people are anticipating will be drafted or signed. Don't know. I will be watching this year now that I know he's out there. So Isaiah Taylor, son of Jason, brother of Mason, is a safety / DB is what he is listed as for Miami, the Miami Hurricanes. Azariah Thomas, here's one that I really liked. This is absolutely insane. You go back and you look at game for game throughout his career, the numbers that he allowed, or the receiving yards he allowed. Just listen to this. So Florida State plays Miami. Who's the quarterback for Miami? Cam Ward. Who's Cam Ward? The best quarterback in the country, number 1 overall pick. Azariah Thomas gave up 28 yards that day receiving. 28. Facing the number 1 pick in the draft. That was the only game his senior year. That was the only game in which he gave up more than 20 yards receiving. That's insane. In today's game, where everybody's just airing it out and running and gunning and letting it rip and air raiding and all that, one time this past season, Azariah Thomas gave up greater than 20 yards, and that was in facing the number 1 overall pick in the draft, Cam Ward. That's fantastic. Aryan Smith, the speedy wide receiver, and nobody can stop talking about his drops, and I get it. Let's give the kid a shot, see how it goes. Had 1 catch. So this was sort of illustrated to me, the fact that he's a guy that even though he wouldn't see a ton of targets, he could spend the whole day not seeing a football, and then he gets 1 target and takes the top off the defense. We know he's got that speed. Here's the production. 5 different times in his college career. Hang on. Let's scroll up. I lost it for a second there. There we go. 5 different times in his college career, he had just 1 catch in a game, and that catch went for 50 yards or more. So quiet all day, only sees 1 target, makes the most of it, 50-yarder. Well, 50 plus. This again, and the next number just kind of reinforces what we know about him being a big play guy. He had 6 multi-catch games, so more than 1. Not I'm not talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 catches, just more than 1. Because again, we just talked about 5 games with 1 catch for 50 or more. 6 games in which he had more than 1 catch and averaged 20 yards per reception. That's again, that the speed's evident. Just hold on to the football. Surprising though, playing at a major program that scored 1 billion points, and given his speed, his ability to get behind a defense, never, ever in his college career did he have 2 receiving touchdowns in a game. Never. That was surprising. I thought, let's look up some of his best games. He must have had a few 2 or 3 touchdown games. None. Not a 1. So Aryan Smith, through the course of his career, 0 multiple touchdown reception games. Malachi Moore. And again, a few of these are numbers from PFF. Spare me, the PFF knows nothing. As I've said before. Then you show me the site that you can use for me to sit down and compare Malachi Moore to every other safety in the country. It's just no such resource exists outside of PFF. And that's why the NFL pays PFF to provide them with data. And the NFL broadcasts PFF grades during games. Look, I get it. You can disagree with some stuff, but can we stop the whole, they have no idea what they're doing? Right. That's why NFL teams are paying them money. And that's why the NFL is broadcasting their grades to the world. So can we disagree at times? Absolutely. Does that mean they don't have a clue? Spare me. So 89.4 pass coverage grade last year from Malachi Moore. That's fantastic. That's the best of his career. Always had good coverage grades, but his tackling, the tackling is what jumped out to me. We've talked about Malachi Moore as this sort of fundamentally sound, good all-around player, good all-around safety. Last year, he missed 5 tackles. That's it. Just 5. You look at like Makubo, Watts, RJ Mickens, who we talked about a lot as a guy we'd hope the Jets would grab. Some of the other top safeties in the draft, especially Makuba and Watts, they all had double-digit missed tackles. And I believe, Moore also had the lowest rate. So just a really nice job by him. Again, being that fundamentally sound guy. The film shows it. The numbers show it. He's a guy who can cover. He's a guy who can tackle and just rarely misses. Francisco Maui Goa, on the other hand, a guy who I hyped up before the draft, or should say hyped up after he was picked, because I had those old tweets where he was in Washington State. He was a guy that I really liked, and I liked a lot of guys on that Washington State defense, and a lot of them ended up in the NFL. Many of them still in the NFL right now. His missed tackle rate blew my mind. I did not expect this at all. At all. Last year, Francisco Maui Goa, 18 missed tackles, which was a 16.1% missed tackle rate. That's crazy. That ranked among draftable players. I believe I filtered it among draftable. I could be wrong. Ranked him 148th in the country in missed tackle rate. Like not good. But here's the weird part. So even with all the missed tackles, all 18 of them, here's the good part, because you want Maui Goa as a run stopper. He was 18th in the country with 47 stops. That doesn't mean run stops. That just means PFF defines a stop as a tackle that it constitutes a failure on the part of the offense. So it means, team went for, ran the ball on 3rd and 4, and you got the tackle, you stopped them short of the first down. It's a failure for them. It's a stop for you. Another interesting fact about Maui Goa, not as interesting for anyone outside of this room. IMG Academy kid. You've probably heard of IMG over the years. They have become a sort of preeminent developer of young football talent. I used to live like 5 minutes from IMG Academy. Before it was IMG Academy, it was a tennis academy before that. If you remember Jennifer Capriati and Andre Agassi, it was called Bolletary Tennis Academy, and they transitioned to become IMG Academy. And I'm like, damn, I wish every prospect in the country was going to school down there back, 20, 30 years ago. Getting old. It happens fast, folks. His brother, Francis. So you got Francis and Francisco, but his brother, Francis, this I did know. Unlike the Taylor situation, Maui Goa's got a brother who plays tackle for Miami. So sharing a locker room with Mason Taylor's brother, Isaiah. But Francisco Maui Goa's brother, and unless I'm mistaken, I like him. I like Francis Maui Goa. What I've seen on film, looks like a really good player, and I've seen him rated pretty high as a tackle prospect. And Maui Goa in high school, rather, as a high schooler, threw for 1,000 yards and ran for 10 touchdowns as a quarterback. There's some Francisco Maui Goa info for you. Next, Tyler Barron. Love this about Tyler Barron. I've talked about this before. When he was picked, I talked about the fact that I like that he's a guy who's just a good all-around player. Solid against the run, solid against the pass. Somebody made a really good point one day saying maybe he's the next JFM, because that's what JFM was. Good rusher, good run stopper. So he played 452 total snaps. Most of those, almost split down the middle. 200 at outside linebacker, then another couple hundred at D end, and then a few randoms. We just get moved around, but predominantly D end and outside linebacker. Had multiple tackles for loss in a game 10 times, 10 different times. He had one game where he had 4 tackles, or all 4 tackles were tackles for loss. Again, none of that's PFF stuff, but here's some PFF stuff for you. If you look at his categories, the defensive categories that they list. Now, I'm not going to put pass coverage in there because he's going to be mostly an edge rusher. But if you look at his all-around defensive grade, his run defensive grade, his tackling grade, and his pass rushing grade, all things he'll be asked to do. If you look at that, that's 4 categories, right? Keep up with me here. We're going to do a little math. 4 categories over 4 years. That's 16 different grades, right? Of those 16 different grades, he graded at a 70 or higher in 12 of those 16. And if you drop down to 60 or higher, again, this is a PFF thing. To them, 60 is average. But let me get that. Yeah, 60 is average, 70 is above average. So he was above average in 12 of 16 categories. And then of the 4 that he wasn't above average, he was average 3 times. So 15 out of 16 columns, I guess you would say, or grades, which again, by situation and by year, 15 out of 16 times he was at worst average, but in 12 out of 16, the overwhelming majority, he was above average. So you love to see it. Brady Cook, the undrafted free agent quarterback out of Mizzou. Here's something that worried me. I shouldn't say worried me, but just kind of makes you go, okay, that's, the numbers. As we say, you can get stats and pad them and make them say what you want sometimes. Brady Cook at, really nice, 44, I believe, 44 career touchdowns, 50 INTs, nice TD to INT ratio. You break that down to conference because I talked about one of the reasons I wanted the Jets to draft him. Here's a guy who's had a lot of success in the SEC. When you pull those SEC numbers out and leave the other conferences out on their own, that number changes a fair bit. Against non-SEC opponents, Brady Cook, 19 touchdown passes to 4 picks. That's pretty damn good. You go SEC only, 25 touchdowns, 11 picks. Not terrible, but not nearly as good as it looks against non-SEC or big picture. Again, listen, I'm not knocking the guy. I'm just saying. I just went strolling around the internet, looking for numbers, facts, stats, opinions. And I'm just sharing with you guys what I found because I had the time to do it. Career high, this is a tough one to swallow for him. His career high in passing yards in a game, 411. His only collegiate game in which he topped 400 yards passing. That came against LSU in a loss. A 49-39 loss to LSU. Cook threw for 411. Rushed for 100 yards twice. Talked about his athleticism. I've talked about it with every hunt he was on. And you look at everybody talked after the combine, how he had the best 40. The kid can run. Two times in his career, he topped 100 yards, those games being against Arkansas and Tennessee. This little fact that you may have seen earlier, I tweeted this out a little while ago because I thought, man, that's a good one. For anyone who doesn't get to watch, for anyone who doesn't get to see it, I really I want to throw this one out there. Brady Cook, in his senior year of high school, not only the quarterback, he was his team's punter. And not only was he his team's punter, but he averaged 48.3 per punt, which led the state in high school. So there you go. Hey, you need a punter off the bench in a quick spot, and you got your third quarterback sitting there. Never hurts to have a guy like that around. But yeah, I thought that was fun. That was a good one. Quinton Skinner, the big stick. Listen, the guy looks 6'5" to me. I see him listed as 6'3". I see people calling him 6'4". I'm calling him 6'5". Till I should have checked his pro day or I can't remember who's the combine. To check that out though. We're calling him 6'5" for now. Now, this is a number I think I touched on, but I think I only mentioned one of the 2 seasons. I think I mentioned, over the past 2 years, averaged 20.2 and 22.3 yards per catch, respectively. That's Those are big numbers, again, for a big guy, because it's not like he's a burner. It's not like he's a guy who's running sub 4.4s and blowing people away. This is a guy who's going down the field. I went back. I was watching a Kansas game a couple days ago because I was watching their center. They have a center. They have a guard. Names escape me right now, number 61, number 70. And, of course, Jalen Daniels, who I've talked about. I was watching those guys. And they had a 3rd and 16 where they go to Skinner on this, on a sideline route, and he, toe tap, pulls it in, gets a first down on 3rd and 16. And it's nice having a guy who's that big to work with if you're a quarterback. Jamal Pritchette, wide receiver, South Alabama, 8 career games of over 100 yards, 10 games in which he had at least, which he averaged 15 yards per catch or better, and 4 games in which he averaged 20 yards per catch or better. He had 8 drops on 220 targets. He is currently the shortest player on the Jets roster as he checks in at 5'8". Punt return, I would imagine the Jets are going to give him a look there. They don't have what Aaron Glenn's talked about this, right? One of the things they want to see from these kids in rookie camp is, can you play specials? Pritchett didn't return a ton of punts in college. It was like 8 or 9, something like that. However, only 2 games did he return 3 punts or more. So again, he only had 9, maybe 10 or 11, whatever it was over his full college career, a couple punt returns. Twice, he had 3 in a game. And in those 2 games, on those 6 returns, he produced 191 yards and a touchdown. Again, keeping in mind it's South Alabama, low-level competition. I get all that. But he is at least going to get a look. And we've all talked about the drops that worry us with Smith because he had 10 last year. Jets get a guy runs in the sub 4.4s, but he had 10 drops last year. Well, guess who else did that? Daimir Miller. Now with Daimir Miller, nobody cares because you didn't use a pick on him. So you can get these guys that have warts. And look, I like Miller. As I said, when he was picked up, he was the guy that I had the least firsthand knowledge of. Didn't recall watching him at any point. So I did go back and watch him. Explosive. The guy, you can see why a team picked him up. He blew it up at his pro day, again, running in the 4.3s. He ran a 4.32, I believe. So this is a guy who can absolutely blaze, but 10 drops last year and 19 for his career. So that's one that doesn't get talked about because, again, if you don't use a pick on a guy, fans don't mind if he got some warts. It's when you're using 4th-rounders on those guys that fans go, what the hell are we doing here? Donovan Edwards, running back, the undrafted free agent out of Michigan. I've talked about this before. Back in 2022, pre-knee surgery, averaged 7.1 a carry, which is insane. He had 6 games in which he averaged at least 7 yards per carry with at least 6 carries. I wasn't going to include a game if he's got 2 carries for 20 yards. I'm not throwing that in there. I feel like 5 or more, 6 or more, that's a decent little sample size for one game. So 6 times with at least 6 carries, he averaged 7 yards per run. And side note, trick plays, if you want to get creative, because I think Edwards has a very good chance to make the roster. During his career at Michigan, he was used to throw the football 4 times. On those 4 plays, he was a perfect 4 for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns. So on game day, when you see Donovan Edwards lined up in the backfield, don't rule out a trick play because he was pretty damn good at it at Michigan. Only a few more here, folks. Like I said, we didn't hit every single new guy. Gus Hartwig, the interior offensive lineman from Purdue. Interior offensive linemen, centers, they don't tend to get dinged with a lot of sacks. But I know I liked him in pass pro. I talked about how I liked his ability to pass defenders off, stunts, twists, things like that. Always sort of heads up, bright guy. Look up an article. This is pre-reading this. I only read this one today. Dad's a coach. His dad's a football coach. Grew up going to practice, watching practice, and that's probably a big part of the reason why a lot of people praise him. Or the number one thing people talk about with Hartwig often is his football IQ. But again, I thought, okay, I know they don't give up a lot of sacks, but let's take a look and see how Hartwig did throughout the course of his career. He played in 51 games for Purdue. He gave up 1 sack on 2,082 pass plays. That's insane. I know, look, I know the numbers are low. I know centers will go an entire year giving up 1 sack or 2 sacks, maybe even shut out. Because look, it's the guy right in the quarterback's face, right? If he beats the center, the quarterback sees it. He can move. He can throw it away. He has more options than if it's a blindside guy. But even still, 1 sack allowed on 2,082 pass plays in 51 games is pretty damn good. Last two I'm going to mention here: Payton Page, the DT out of Tennessee. We left him out when we talked to Emory Hunt because we'd seen his name reported, and I did believe he was going to be a Jet. It did look that way. But it was not it wasn't confirmed anywhere else. It was literally just one tweet. So I was like, we'll hold off on Payton Page. Thing I liked about him, I watched a couple of his games on film and came away. I thought he was good against Florida State. And I forget the other 2 games I watched now because this is a couple weeks ago and I've been watching so much. I wasn't blown away, put it that way. I was kind of like, not so sure. We'll see. But last and certainly not least, Furma Malba. Now, the great thing about Malba here, or this stat, is that I found it while I was looking up a Payton Page stat. I was sorting, we talked earlier about stops and what constitutes a stop and an offensive failure. I was looking at Payton Page, and he had a decent number of stops, not a ton. So I thought, let's go to the draftable players, the draftable defensive tackles from 2025, and see what a sort of mid-range number was, looking for where Payton Page fell. And honestly, I never got that far because you know what jumped out at me? There was Furma Malba, top 5 in the country. Top 5. Tied for 5th in all of college football. Again, among draftable prospects. But he's up there with Mason Graham. He's up there with Walter Nolan. You're talking first-round talent guys. Malba was up there with them in that top 5 with 29 stops. And of those 29 stops, well, I mean, this would, to go along with the 29 stops, I should say, of those who were in the top 5, he had the lowest missed tackle rate at 3.8%, only 2 missed tackles. So look, as I said the other day, you can go back to the Emory Hunt episode that we talked about, and I mentioned it a few times. I feel like Malba has the best shot to make this roster because they need a run stopper. I watched him on film. I thought this dude looks like a pretty good run stopper. Hadn't looked at any PFF numbers yet. And then I looked up the PFF numbers a couple hours ago, and I'm like, wow. Wasn't even looking for him. Was looking for someone else, and his name pops off the screen at me. What the hell is he doing all the way up here with Mason Graham and Walter Nolan? Well, that's where he is. He's in the top 5, only 2 missed tackles, 29 stops against the run. So the Jets may have something there. They may have a guy who's ready to not just make the roster, but have an impact early on. I would certainly hope so, given the fact that they don't really have true run stoppers. I know that, people get mad at me. We got Leonard Taylor. He's more of a rusher, right? He's not really that guy. So that's it. That's going to wrap this one up. I just wanted to look up and find some fun facts and hop on here, share them with you. That'll be this one. We will be back soon, probably within the next couple of days. Got a few topics, stories, things we want to hit on, or that I want to hit on. And Thursday night will be a regular full long show. This one went a little longer than I expected to, but I got a little bit long-winded. Apologies. We'll be back again soon. Definitely Thursday night, probably tomorrow with some more stuff. Have a good one, Jets fans.